Your YouTube views aren't growing, your Instagram account is languishing on a few thousand followers, and your LinkedIn posts are getting 11 likes and no love. The average company has never been good at socials. But hey, it's a new year and it's time to change that. But how? Well, recently you may have seen videos from top creators claiming that socials are now on easy mode. But what do they mean? What is this easy mode, and why are the socials any different from this time last year? In this video, we're going to break down the 5 ways to win on socials for startups and scale-ups. And hey, if you're a solo creator, maybe there's something in here for you too. Let's get started. Now, the first one is the mega change. Everything else I'm going to talk about cascades from this one thing. A few years ago, in a similar kind of video, I talked about the TikTokification of social media. Everything and everyone was moving towards short-form video as the primary source of content. And all those photographers on Instagram and brands posting carousels were seeing their follower growth kind of grind to a halt. But the TikTokification of socials is about more than just video formats. It's about how the algorithm works, and 2 important changes that relate to intent. Let's break this down. First up is the shift from intent-based search on Google and YouTube, for example, to suggestion-based discovery and recommendation. It's this kind of content that's the bedrock of the mindless scrolling and the brain rot. It's the dopamine hit content. And second up is the shift from follower-based content recommendation to audience and interest-based content recommendation. It's the so-called death of the follower. Put simply, content is now discovered through recommendations, not searches, and engagement matters more than followers. Gary Vee says the same kind of thing. To paraphrase the social media that we grew up with, which basically said as many followers as you had is a kind of indicator of the general range a post would get. Well, all those best practices have been annihilated by TikTok, and now it's all about the individual piece of content. So what does this mean for you? I think you know what it means because you experience it as a user every single day. You follow 600 people on Instagram, but you only ever see content from 7 of those people, and the rest is seemingly random content pushed to you through the Reels feed or your Explore tab. But of course, it's not random at all. It's carefully curated based on all your data points, and most specifically on the kind of content you've engaged with recently. So what does this mean for you as a startup on socials? It means you can't afford to be ill-disciplined with your content. Your socials can no longer afford to be a variety show of inconsistency. One day you're posting about your offsite, the next you're posting 7 tips to do this, that, or the other. I mean, that was never good, but now it's guaranteed to be a road to nowhere. Content isn't being matched to users via follower graphs, it's being matched via interest and engagement graphs. And you know, we had this same issue at my previous company, which was a tech bootcamp. We'd make content for wannabe UX designers, and wannabe UX designers would love it. Then we'd make content for wannabe web developers, and wannabe web developers would love it. But the UX designers would scroll right on by and disengage because that content just wasn't for them. Now, for those of you who've studied marketing, you'll know that consistency is a pillar of brand strategy. It's why brand colors and taglines and sonic branding is why all of these things exist. Now more than ever, consistency is the single biggest predictor of success on socials. Let's check out my favorite real-world example. And while you're watching this, think about how you could achieve the same kind of impact with your videos. So this is Zander Whitehurst. He's got 714,000 followers on Instagram, and in fact grew his entire company off the back of this following. He consistently clocks up over 100,000 views on his reels and has regularly topped 1 million. And this isn't even like fitness or motivational content, it's design tips. So how does he do it? Hyper consistency. He's typically sat in the same spot, a small variation on the hat that he's wearing, the same font and style, and normally running through the process to achieve a certain design, whether that's of a logo or an icon or a web page, and all super fast while he's sharing his screen. So the viewers know exactly what to expect and the content is clearly valuable. But here's the true hack. He moves through the process so fast you have to watch on repeat and start the video in order to be able to follow along. And that means his reels rack up an absurd amount of engagement. It's a 3-point recipe for success: consistency, value, and engagement, all super fast. That's a rare example of a creator that's elegantly transitioned to become a brand. But if you look at the biggest creators, they've nailed this consistency from day one. Just think about the Vox Pop street interviewers. The only variable is the person being interviewed. Much like in Zander's video, the only variable is the Figma trick being taught. So what's your variable? You're only allowed one. Single topic, single audience. You pick one topic and hammer it over and over again. It's not about a variety of topics to keep your audience entertained. It's about small variations on a single theme. But I know what you're thinking. Creativity is dead and that's sad. Well, Yes, but people like to play it safe, to have their expectations set and met. That's half the reason why McDonald's exists and why TV quizzes pull in the same viewership week after week. But again, I know what you're thinking. You're a complex company with 5 departments and 20 products and 120 employees, and you have more than one thing to say and more than one thing to sell. Well, that's where the second win of this video comes in: multi-account marketing. So if you can resource it, you have one channel for your value-heavy edu content, one for your behind the scenes, one maybe in Spanish, whatever it might be, and you collab between the channels to piggyback growth. In fact, this is one of the slick ways you can manage both personal and company brand. And in fact, we'll come back to this point later in the video. In the end, it goes back to the marketing fundamentals. Understand your ideal customer and what content will most appeal to them, and then get to it, Zander style. And that brings me on to win number 3. And this is something that Serial founder Greg Eisenberg talks about a lot. So first we had the death of the follower, and now we have the death of the golden path. So what is the golden path? I mean, this has different definitions depending on your domain, but they all share common traits. The idea that there's a single, clear, opinionated method to accomplish a specific task with the intention of reducing the cognitive load on the target audience. And now there are tons of companies out there who basically operate without a funnel. We meet clients like this weekly. They take users straight from a post to a product and see 1% conversion rates if they're lucky. And then there's the next level that has one funnel in place, their golden path, and almost no willingness to test this funnel. And then there are the trendsetters, those that realize users are almost always on little missions to complete primary tasks, and that their job is to facilitate this task completion. And this means having multiple conversion points, like free resources to help your audience navigate an obstacle in their working day, to free courses for people establishing interest in a field, to free communities for people to exchange ideas with other like-minded people, and webinars to get questions answered by experts. And then you just let the users kind of self-select rather than squeezing this square peg into a round hole. I mean, ultimately, only about 3% of your audience is ready to buy at any one time. And this way, you can appeal to the other 97%. So now for tip 4, and let's double down on one of the funnels we mentioned, the private community. You've probably seen Alex Hormozi aggressively promoting School, a platform for building, managing, and monetizing private communities. And you're likely aware of the extraordinary success of OnlyFans, which has increased its revenue by over 6 billion in just 5 years. And even if you're not aware of those two platforms, you'll probably have noticed how your own behavior has switched from posting every picture you ever took to public albums on Facebook to sharing your favorites in closed groups on WhatsApp or Messenger, with Slack and Discord serving kind of similar purposes for work and entertainment. Now, there are a few dynamics driving this transition to the private community. One that's kind of driven more by human psychology, and the other one by market forces. Firstly, there's the more abstract analysis of private communities being a reaction to the kind of noise you now experience on social media, which is, to be honest, getting more extreme by the day amid like dystopian announcements by Mark Zuckerberg advocating for AI creators. No one feels good after depleting their dopamine stores on Instagram. And it feels even more base if you know that there's not even a human at the other end. It's kind of like the dead internet theory come true. It's the fourth order of simulation where signs reflect other signs and only have the faintest origin in reality. And I think there's a growing recognition that algorithm-driven short-form content is the closest media has ever come to a Class B drug. And a lot of us want to go cold turkey. So yeah, we're craving human connection and the relatively decommodified and irreplaceable experience of someone's like actual time and actual attention. And let's not forget that membership of a community can contribute to your sense of identity. You're in a private group of young entrepreneurs or 80+ yoga fanatics. These are things which will shape your sense of self much more than your engagement with the latest Insta fad. And on the flip side, we have the market forces. Us marketers are being forced in this direction towards private communities by social platforms that insist on building walls around their increasingly artificial gardens, suppressing and deactivating links as a default to kind of juice up their platforms' retention rates and ad revenues, and making it increasingly difficult to measure the impact of our marketing efforts. Personally, I don't mind this. Finding ways to measure the unclickable is fun. But for many companies, an untold truth is that predictability is often more important than profitability. Perhaps not for Bill, the CEO, but certainly for Barry, the COO, who's trying to figure out next year's hiring plan. At the end of the day, it's mightily hard to run a company off the back of zero-click content and fickle algorithms. And with ever less control, we need to find ways to win it back. And that's in an owned, read private community. Us marketers know how valuable our email list is. There are more dollars in our captured audience than in our captive audience, right? But emails felt old hat for some time, and messaging apps like Slack and WhatsApp are where people spend most of their time, where people react the quickest and what feels the most personal. An active private community is therefore a goldmine, driving more meaningful engagement than an email ever could, and providing endless opportunities for real-time feedback on the content you're seeding and on the products you're offering. And now we're at the final point 5. And this point brings everything together again, from hyper-consistency to hyper-reality to, hopefully, hyper-growth. Any company's growth relies on either growing traffic, improving conversion, or building a product that creates multipliers. And ideally, you can dial up all of those things simultaneously. And who are the gods of traffic generation? Creators. As traditional companies like throw their dollars into Meta and Google ads, creators are getting the same kind of reach for free, minus the time it takes, of course. So what we're seeing now is two things. Creators are becoming brands, and brands are hiring creators. The companies that win in 2025 and beyond will merge both worlds, using creators to generate traffic and then building irresistible funnels that turn views into loyal customers. Here at Humble&Brag, we've onboarded one of the biggest creators on LinkedIn to help him launch his edtech company, and an established app that's hired a creator with hundreds of thousands of followers into a senior leadership position. There's work to be done though. Creators tend to be great at growing traffic, but poor at conversion and product, which incidentally is the reason why OnlyFans is so insanely successful. And companies tend to be great at products and conversion, but poor at traffic creation. And there's a big gap in between those two things. The standout companies of the near future will bridge this gap. They'll dial up their organic traffic, deploy what works to their paid channels, and create funnels so seductive that you won't even know you're in them until you've toppled out the other end a few dollars to the worse. Yeah, and so to wrap up, and on that note, I should probably tell you about our private community for YouTube strategists, Humbleweed by Humble&Brag. You can join us in the link in the description and let us know what you think about the evolution of socials. Or you can just drop a good old-fashioned comment in the comments section below. That brings us to the end of the video. If you want to see more content just like this, then hit the subscribe button, and I will see you next time.